call this meeting of the Carpentersville Village Board to order. Mike, call the roll, please.
Trustee Burroway?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Trustee Humford?
Here.
Trustee Sabi?
Here.
Trustee Rayberg?
Here.
Trustee Schultz?
Here.
President Ritter?
Here. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation from Pastor Ball from Kane County. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Ball.
Good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just come before you tonight and thanking you for this moment we have to just appreciate you and your creation. And God, we just pray that you would bless our village and our world today, Lord God, and that you would keep us. Lord, guide us tonight in our village board meeting. Father, we just pray that your agenda would be our agenda, your plans would be our plans, Lord God. And Father, just guide us into all truth. And Lord, we just pray your protection around our village, around our cities, and Lord, just over our lives in general. And God, we thank you for your safe hand guiding us and leading us. So now, God, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And all these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Okay, we have no proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, or awards, no appointments, confirmations, or administrations of oath. Do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, we do. We have Emilio Baez.
State your name and address, and it's all yours for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Emilio Baez. I was arrested December 2nd of 2015, and in the dash cam surveillance, Officer Ramos, who arrested me, can be heard saying that my eyes look fine, yet in the official report, he states the opposite. Within the station, Officer Ramos told me, verbatim, "You're under arrest right now. You have no rights." In addition, Officer Crow substantiated this comment by telling me very straightforwardly that, quote, "the Fifth Amendment does not apply." I filed a detailed Freedom of Information Act request, but the booking footage was not included. So I filed a second FOIA request, specifying surveillance footage of the Sally Port and the booking video. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from someone with the CPD. I was told that my request would not be honored because they had sent me the requested footage the first time. This claim is a fabrication, and I consider the CPD's behavior to be unnecessarily suspicious. The Carpentersville Police Department is effectively engaging in a cover-up, and I strongly suggest that the department cooperate with my FOIA request alongside any disciplinary measures considered adequate for the circumstances I've described. Thank you.
Thank you for your information. Okay, next would be the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of those items unless the trustee so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered on its normal sequence of the agenda. Any items to be removed?
I'll motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion Paul, second Ginger. Would you call the roll, please, Mike?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Humford?
Yes.
Trustee Sabi?
Yes.
Trustee Rayberg?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
Yes.
Trustee Burroway?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that we all sometimes do, we go through and do the consent agenda, and some very important items are sometimes on there. And so, seeing as how there are several, I think I'd just give a quick synopsis of some of these. One is an emergency contract for $30,000. We have a really bad 16-inch water main that's right along Highway 31, and they have to dig it up and replace it. You may have seen something in the newsletter already, but it will require us to use the interconnect, the water interconnect with West Dundee, which may affect the taste of your water because their water is different than ours. And Bob, did you have more you wanted to put in on this one? Or
We were going to do that under the manager's
Okay.
report, but
I'm
we can
sorry.
do it right now if the board is okay.
That's fine. Go ahead. It's more for the public than it is for us. We kind of know what's going on, but.
Yeah,
general
tomorrow
public
morning,
doesn't.
Berger Excavating will be mobilizing at the intersection of Route 31 and North Lincoln to begin the Route 31 water main replacement project. This will be a two-day project. Day one will consist of an excavation that will expose all the utilities. Following that, on day two, they will actually do the main replacement. Crews from the water department, they will be starting early to make sure that all of our tanks are topped off. The West Dundee interconnect will be open for the duration of the repairs, and dependent on the tank levels, when we put the main back in service, we will flush the water system up on the west side. And like I said, that will be dependent on the tank levels, and it will be a very slow flush, so we don't rustle up the iron and things like that in the water main. And after that, we should be good to go. It's hard to tell how long that the water service or the water main will be out of service. I'm thinking maybe 8 to 10 hours or so. But this is a professional crew. That's all they do, so they will be good at it.
Out of service from the perspective of our water filling our tank.
Yes.
We're still going to have the connection with West Dundee.
Yes.
So, and it's going to mix with our water, right?
Yes, sir.
So the effect shouldn't be that bad then.
Shouldn't be that bad. No. And like I said, we will flush the system, dependent on the levels in the tank and also the weather.
And we're very thankful to West Dundee of that intergovernmental agreement, emergency water connection. It works both ways, and lately we've had to use it for this purpose. And we want to emphasize we would have waited till summer, but because of the danger of that breaking and then taking a long time to mobilize a crew to get out there and do it with that high pressure gas main, we've scheduled it to try to forestall a worst case emergency.
And just as an aside, you're probably better off not to wash your clothes for a day or two, because that flushing of the lines puts the rust in there, and I made the mistake of doing that once and ended up with orange laundry. So maybe you might want to just wait a day or two before you do laundry.
Good advice.
Bob,
Okay.
What would have happened or before we had the interconnect in? If something like this would have occurred, what would have happened to water on the west side?
There was no west side before the interconnect.
Okay, all right, it was put in with the west side.
Interconnect
Okay,
needed to be installed to provide water
For the
to entire
redundancy.
west side.
okay, I was just curious.
Any other questions or comments? Go
And
ahead.
just affects the residents on the west side, is there an, okay,
Yes, sir.
just wanted to make that clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you. Couple of others. One of the resolutions here is for a Phase 1 engineering for Old Town. We've mentioned it. It's in our goals that we need to redo a lot of stuff in Old Town. It's old. That's why it's called Old Town, and the infrastructure's old. And the first step is to do an engineering study of the area. So that's one of the things that's on here. And we also have some really bad drainage in the Indian section of Carpentersville. And they're starting Phase 2 engineering to start getting ready to do that project as well, to clear up a lot of drainage problems that have occurred there for years.
That should-
And Rock the Fox is coming back, so that's on the consent agenda. Paul?
Yeah,
comment?
no, it is about that study for drainage on the east side. That's been a problem at times over the past several years. I think there's a really old picture out there of Kings Road being flooded. So this should address and hopefully stop that from happening in the future, this engineering study. And, of course, we'll take the appropriate work at a later date to make sure that anything that they suggest to help improve drainage on the east side from that Indian section, specifically Hopi, will be taken care of in the future with infrastructure work.
In the report section, Report A on engineering is about White Oaks, and we're going to give that another week or another 2 weeks, because there's a couple of questions that need to be talked out first. So we'll skip A and we'll go on to B then. Mark?
Okay. On the, if we're at the manager's report before we get to new business,
That was, yeah, it was, item A of new business is what we wanted tabled, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, was it not the report section?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not the report
it's under
section.
new, under
Yeah,
new
under
business.
new business.
Excuse me.
So we'll wait and do that at that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That was my fault.
Then we'll go ahead back and go back to A, updating from engineering.
Yes, well, Bob just gave that report, and we spoke to that, so Chief Kilborn had two items he wanted to address with the board as an update.
Good evening. Thank you. As you have in front of you, the Carpentersville Police Department is participating in the Pink Patch Project, which we put out a press release just this afternoon. We are the first in Illinois to be involved in this process. As of the end of last week, there were 90 organizations, but I think another one has joined. It's up to 91 now nationwide. The Pink Patch program is an effort, a collaborative effort between the Los Angeles County Police Chiefs Association and law enforcement organizations across the country. The object is twofold: to raise awareness of breast cancer and to help with fundraising for breast cancer awareness, research, and treatment. We will, as you see on my uniform today, we have patches that are designed specifically in a pink and a dark gray background. Starting in March, the department will sell these patches, and that money that doesn't take up for the purchase of the patches themselves will be donated to a local Chicagoland area breast cancer research area. The last couple of weeks, I've talked to a couple different organizations, just doing some research to make sure that we pick out the most appropriate one and the one where any donations that we make will be the biggest bang for the buck. Our officers will also be given the option of wearing the pink patches on the uniform, which goes towards the awareness, because people will see the pink patches and then ask questions about why are your patches pink, and talk about breast cancer awareness in that manner.
And it's not to overshadow the fire department, still going to do their program, right?
That's correct. And really, October is the big breast cancer awareness month. But this process of ordering these and moving them forward, didn't want to sit back and wait a number of months. We probably will be doing other events targeted towards breast cancer awareness coming in October also.
Chief,
Yes.
because our fire department has been doing it for a while and they've had some very generous checks, will you pick a different chapter so that, I mean, we could kind of spread the wealth a little
Yes,
bit? Yeah.
the ones I am looking towards, and I know the fire department has used it local from one of our local hospitals in the past.
Yeah.
I'm looking more towards a Chicagoland area, a larger organization that does more in not only research and awareness, but also has funding for treatment for those who are not able to get diagnosed and treatment. So it covers more wider range area.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
I do have a couple other things.
Okay.
Also in front of you is a letter that Mark Huber and I put together in reference to notifying those businesses that are directly affected by the check cashing ordinance that was passed at the end of last year. That letter, along with a copy of the ordinance itself, will go out this week to those businesses, notifying them of the changes if they didn't notice them when it occurred, and also directing them to speak to either Mark or myself if they have any questions as to how they can fit under the regulations and still continue that operation.
Has there been any backlash so far? Or?
No, have not heard any. And I do have a third thing, the Drug Coalition. The Carpentersville Police Department, along with the Wren Center, has been working together to form the Carpentersville Drug Coalition. We have met about 5 times now. I know Don always mentions it at the meeting. We do have a new name, and I'll let Don go over that. But we are sending to a national conference for Community Drug Coalition. Officer Joe Pilarski is going. his total cost of going to the conference is being covered by the grant that the Drug Coalition is being covered with. And then Griselda Hernandez, our social worker, and also the architect of our Strengthening Family program, is going to the conference under her grant through Strengthening Families. Don, did you want to add anything else?
I'll get to that when we get to commission reports.
Okay. Then you want to talk about Foxview. Okay. We are still moving forward with some aggressive action down at Foxview, the apartment complex. Over the past couple of weeks, Steadfast, which is the owner-operator of Foxview, has hired a new security firm. Signal 88 Security will take over somewhere between January 23rd and February 1st of security down at Foxview. The police department has met with the new security firm 3 times, and they have also come in and met with Pastor Ball, most recently Friday of last week. They will also be at the Foxview community member meeting tomorrow afternoon or evening at 5:30. Steadfast is moving forward with the installation of the license plate reader cameras down at the entrance exit of Foxview. In speaking to Rob in the past 2 weeks, they anticipate having the installation begin the end of January, beginning of February, and still target for 2017 to have all their older style analog cameras replaced with digital cameras. And as a side note of an incident that started in Streamwood, ended in Chicago, that is internationally known. One of those individuals involved was incorrectly identified as being a Carpentersville resident. We pretty aggressively tried to track down where that came from. And upon his arrest with the Chicago police, he identified an apartment building, not an apartment address, but an apartment building in Foxview as his home address, even though his numerous prior contacts all included addresses from other municipalities. We went door to door at that location, found no one who took responsibility for him living there. Foxview indicated that he was never a registered resident or a registered guest. There was a relative located in that building, although the relative claimed that that person identified never lived at that location. So.
And we worked with the media to try to correct it going forward.
Worked with the media, tried to work with Chicago police, and did work with Streamwood to gain information. But
at the meeting tomorrow, Mike, I'll be there at the Foxview meeting. Will yourself or Officer Pilar?
Myself and Joe will be there.
You will? Okay,
yes,
great.
Along with the new security officers.
Okay, so they'll be able to talk to the residents if
yes.
asked questions?
Oh, yes, because that's the intent, is to bring them there.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, we've met with them 3 times here with the department, Pastor Ball
I
once.
figured you had.
So the intent is to get them out, meeting these people, even before they are actually boots on the ground.
Yeah, great. Okay, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we would go on to committees. Pat?
Well, just a couple of quick things. The Special Events Committee, as I mentioned, took a little hiatus here in January. We'll probably start up in February. As you noted, President Ritter, Bob Cole and I met with a couple of folks from Odd Fellows. They were anxious to get the board's recognition so that they could have another event. Because they had a really short window last year, and it was a little difficult to get a carnival at the last minute. I mean, the carnivals, believe it or not, are already booking into this summer as we speak. So they're looking for another one, and they're looking to add some other, maybe some events, some other things to it. So, and also to do any sponsorships, look for sponsorships. So they wanted a wider window of time. So I appreciate the board's consideration for tonight's agenda item for them, and I'm fairly certain we'll probably be doing the same thing soon for our Civil War folks. They just recently contacted me. They have a flood of units from Wisconsin that want to come down Carpentersville is still on the top of everybody's mind as far as coming, and they are hoping to have the event same weekend in August. So, but I don't know much more than that, other than they've already been planning a ton of stuff for themselves. So we've got a couple of events to look forward to, and we'll have more to discuss when our committee meets, and then I'll be able to give a better report. So next month, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Our next audit and finance meeting is on February 28th. There hasn't been an audit and finance meeting since the last village board meeting. We'll be discussing costs for some village hall maintenance. That's something that's rising to the top of mind for us. So this will be our first sort of swag at quantifying and prioritizing what needs to be done versus what can be put off versus alternatives. Everything's on the table, and we're going to see what we can do. And then we're also going to have an update on Carpenter Park as well. It's been a little while since we have an update there. Again, that's not until February 28th, though, so we'll have another, I believe, 2 board meetings before that.
Is that at 6:30, Kevin?
It is
6:30?
6:30, yeah.
Okay.
Paul?
2 things. The January meeting for business and development will not happen. We're going to cancel that. I have a lot of members that are vacation or go south when the weather gets cold, so we're going to skip January and meet again in February, likely at this point. The second thing is covered on new business tonight. This is an agreement with retail strategies. I'll wait until then to get into discussion about that. You heard a little bit about it last meeting, so I know that was after the board meeting and committee of the whole. So we'll reveal more information about that contract when we go to vote on it, or a little bit, a few minutes here, I'm sure. So that's it for now. Thanks.
Don?
Excuse me. As referenced earlier by the police chief, we had a meeting of the Carpentersville Community Coalition Cares. That's the name of the group now. It will be identified by C4. C with the little 4 there, right? Didn't we? So you might see some, paperwork with that logo kind of going around on that. And then underneath it, it'll say substance abuse. We had a great meeting. Excuse me. And we did, so we've got the name, we've got the vision, we've got the everything going so far, and we just had to develop our core values, and which we did through, sitting there with paper and pen and looking up definitions of different words and what they meant to us. And we came up with our core values would be compassion, respect, teamwork, empathy, and empowerment. I think those are a great 5 core values that we can incorporate into the way we handle things. Again, I want to thank the chief for being there for us, and the fire department. JP from the fire department was there, Chief JP, and it was a good meeting, and we'll continue on. I'm happy to see that we're sending some people to Washington, D.C. to go to meet with people from all over the country there. And second, the Jelkes Creek Fox River Watershed Coalition had a meeting here a week ago. We've come out with a newsletter that we'll be distributing electronically, so I'll be getting that as the point of contact for Jelkes Creek. Also, Ed Sedlowski, I'll put his name in to receive that too. One thing is I got to pass on to Ed. It's time to up our membership and re-up our membership in that organization, so we'll do that. We've got the signs now ready for the watershed. They're at Public Works. We'll have those being put in place probably a little later in the spring, as we're still looking for places in Carpentersville to put these signs. And we're kind of on a roll of trying to project Jelkes Creek watershed to the public. And I know I've talked about it before, but really, I don't know if people out there know what a watershed is. And I have a definition here, and I'm going to read that to you. If it rains on you, you are in a watershed. You do not need to live adjacent to a body of water. Watershed is an area of land that drains into a common water body, such as a stream or lake, Fox River. There you go. So the Jelkes Creek is part of that. Okay, it's a sub-watershed of the Fox River watershed. The Fox River watershed is a sub of the Illinois River watershed. Illinois River is a sub-watershed of the Mississippi River. So what we put in our water here goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's what we look at. That's what we try to keep an eye on, the river and the small streams that feed the Fox River, such as Carpenter Creek. What else we got here? Rat Creek, Shaw Creek, Sleepy Creek over in Sleepy Hollow, Dixie Creek, Four Winds Way Creek. We just talked about that. Lake Marion Creek, which we're kind of doing some work on that to improve that with bank stabilization and new culverts and such like that. So it's all connected. It's all connected, and I hope to continue on serving in this manner. And it's real interesting work, and I really enjoy it. And thank you very much.
Well, that should conclude our reports. Excuse me. We have no old business. Under new business, again, item A, we're going to put that off to the next meeting.
I'll motion to
Okay.
table item A.
I'll second that.
All right, motion, we don't want to table. That's the right word is.
Continue.
Continue, excuse me.
And do you want to put it on a specific meeting or just continue?
We'll
with
just put it on the next meeting.
Yeah, it'll be February 7th.
Okay, so you want to continue this to the February 7th meeting. Motion, Kevin, second. Paul.
Yeah, I'll amend my second.
As far as discussion, the people in White Oaks had a few questions, and so we're going to let them have a chance to ask their questions first before we vote on it.
Good move.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, call the roll on the motion as amended.
Trustee Humfer.
Yes.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.
Trustee Rayburn.
Yes.
Trustee Schultz.
Yes.
Trustee Burley.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution waiving competitive bidding requirements and approving a professional services agreement with Retail Strategies LLC of Birmingham, Alabama for retail market analysis and retail recruitment services. Would need a motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion,
Jeff?
Second, Paul. Okay. Mark, I assume you're going to have, go ahead.
Good evening. Over the last several months, staff has been researching firms that could improve our retail recruitment efforts. We found several, talked to several of them. Eventually, we identified Retail Strategies as the firm that would be most appropriate to help us. And similar to all the firms, they would conduct a trade area analysis, retail leakage analysis, and then also catalog available sites and buildings. And then based on that information, they would develop a list of retailers that would make sense to be in Carpentersville. Retail Strategy, though, they go one step further. They'll do that active recruiting of the retailers for us. And also, they would represent us at all of the International Council of Shopping Center trade shows. You know, we can still go to those, but they'll cover us at all of them. And I think probably the biggest benefit that we could see from Retail Strategies is they'd be bringing knowledge and industry knowledge to help us with our long-term vacant buildings like Dominic's and Huntley Square. But they could also help our existing property owners on 31 and 25 with same types of leads, but also with market data that the property owners may not have as well. And I contacted 4 communities that are using retail strategies right now. These are references that Retail Strategies provided, so I wasn't surprised that it was positive, the responses that I received. But what did surprise me was that 2 of the communities have entered already into a 4th year with Retail Strategies, and another one is considering that right now. And 2 of them said that it was actually money well spent going with Retail Strategies. The contract for the first year would be $50,000, and if we feel that it's wise to move forward, the second year would be at $30,000. Retail Strategies did present to the Business Development Commission at its December 27th meeting, presented their qualifications and capabilities, and the BDC did vote to recommend that the village retain its services, and staff concurs with that recommendation.
Any questions or comments? Paul?
Yeah, there was unanimous support by the Business Development Commission, and includes a member who has been to the trade show in Las Vegas many times and is familiar with Retail Strategies and their work. I think where Retail Strategies differentiates themselves from, say, perhaps Hancock, who we used previously, in that Hancock provided more of a conceptual, this is where we think you guys should go as a village, focusing on these areas, where I think Retail Strategies is looking at specific open spots that we have in the village, whether there's a building there or not, and putting together or bringing us people that may be, or retailers that, or whoever it may be interested in moving into those spots, and also providing the data, the demographic data, a lot of these retailers are looking for, so that they can plug that into their system and determine if they want to come to Carpentersville or not. So I'm very happy that we're, hopefully we'll move forward with this with your vote yes tonight. But Patrick, he's typically at our meetings, he will come and go through, not an exhaustive list, but the calls he's gotten or the calls he's made that to companies that may be interested in moving into town. And I think this is just going to strengthen that and hopefully quicken that process, so we can see about filling some of these open spots. I mean, we're doing a pretty good job right now with filling open spots, but we have 2 big ones. We have the old Dominic's over on Randall Road, and we have Huntley Square, and those, I'm getting tired of seeing both of those be open, remain open, remain uninterested by retailers at this point, even though we have had some nibbles and questions and potentially companies that wanted to come in. But I'm excited that Retail Strategies will bring us several good clients that we could work with and hopefully fill those spots. So I'd urge you to vote yes on that on this resolution.
Other comments? Pat?
Well, just to point out too, and Patrick and I have talked, what about Starbucks? What about this? And I understand, I do. I know a lot of folks think we can just fill all our storefronts. What are you waiting for? When in fact, they often don't return calls. And, we're not the only community out there vying for the brick and mortars out there. And I think that's something that needs to be always kind of reminded. I am too all the time, that I'm sure you've made call after call, but if you can't get a return call, so it's difficult, I know. The other thing I think I'd like to point out, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick or Paul, is so if we were to spend that money on this firm, and then we were to get an occupant in, say, the Dominic's, whatever sales tax we would get would offset the cost. So this isn't like we're just writing a check and we're not going to get anything out of return other than maybe a store. I mean, in fact, it'll pay for itself. And it would subsequently do that if we were to retain them a second year as they continue to fill those stores. So I think it's important to kind of know that that's how that works. It's, so, and I know you know that, Patrick. So
Yeah,
but
Pat, that's a great point, because even if it's another big box store that would come in, let's say at the Dominic's,
Right.
I mean, that's not even a month of sales tax. It's
Absolutely.
probably less than 3 weeks of sales tax
Right.
generated from what our experience is
Yeah.
currently in Carpentersville.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great point.
And we know our local neighbors have been hiring folks too, firms to do much the same. As I said, everybody's vying for the same, what I think is an ever-growing smaller pool, not growing rather, of brick and mortar out there, to be honest with you, but anyways, appreciate all the efforts, Patrick, I really do. So thank you. So.
Other comments or questions?
I'm excited to see what they come up with marketing for the Dominic's location. It's a unique corner there, and although it's in the zip code 60110, that doesn't really accurately reflect the area around the Dominic's there. So this firm will have the expertise and the database capabilities to be able to splice together a truer picture of the footprint around Dominic's and be able to get that out to prospective businesses, and that'll be much more valuable than just saying, here's 60110.
Yeah.
And Trustee Rayberg, the trade area analysis for the Dominic's, I think we're going to be surprised at how big it is because it's on Randall Road. It won't be just a circle. It's going to go west and north and south.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some blue chip communities within the Dominic zone.
So, and of course, a requested store of Mariano's is now going to be opening in Crystal Lake. So, because they're closing the old Sears on 14, and Mariano's is going to go in. So, but you never know. So, we'll see. So.
Okay. There are no other questions or comments. Mike, call the roll.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.
Trustee Rayburn.
Yes.
Trustee Schultz.
Yes.
Trustee Burway.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Humper.
Yes.
That would've been awesome.
Okay, that would conclude our new business. The next thing would be trustee reports. We'll start with Ginger this evening.
I have no report tonight.
Just a quick comment. I'm really, Don, entertained by you guys putting together a mission statement and setting values. That's something we've done here at the village, not only at a village level, but that's been pushed down to department level, and I think it works for us really well. It does give an aspiration for people to look to do their job or to help out. So I just really want to compliment you on that and the work you're doing there.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
I really have no report other than to say I'm really like the pink patches. I'm glad that we're kind of leading the way with that in Illinois, and keep up the good work.
There was one resolution on the consent agenda that I wanted to point out too that you didn't mention that I thought was worth mentioning, and that was our new policy on reimbursement for travel and lodging. Not so much the particulars of it, but just the fact that we've put together this policy and it's out there, and it's just another step towards sound fiscal management. It's a direction we've been heading in, and it's something that, when I came onto the board, I had some questions about, well, what happens with this? What happens if someone and it was, it was sort of typically we do this, This codifies everything, and it puts it all into a language that is standardized and can be held up for scrutiny. And this is the kind of thing that I like seeing on our agendas, so I just want to point that out.
Thank you, Pat.
Just wanted to mention that I'm looking forward to the meeting tomorrow at Foxview. I'm very excited for those residents that we're finally seeing some movement down there with Steadfast. And also the following week, and I'll be able to give a report at the first meeting in February, will be our first Carpentersville Clergy Committee meeting. And I'm looking forward to that. Very interested to sit down with our local pastors and talk to them. I know Pastor Ball has a vision for what he'd like to do, but I think in the end it's going to help in a lot of ways as far as disseminating information and working with some of them, some that never come to the meetings, but they might be hearing from their parishioners. So it's a good step forward. So I'll be able to, either I will or I'll ask Pastor Ball if he'd like to give a report maybe to the board that first meeting in February then. So, and that would be all for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. I love it. Can I put on my motorcycle vest, you know? And obviously it's an important endeavor. It hits close to home, I know, for this board and for me personally. So excellent. Way to go. That's all. Thanks.
That's it, Tom? Okay. A few things. I attended Metropolitan Mayor's Executive Committee, which I've been a member of for several years now, and a couple of interesting things. One of them is regional truck permitting for oversized and overweight trucks. As of now, every village sets their own rules through home rule, or the county sets rules for the size and where they can drive and so forth and so on. But there's a big push from the trucking companies now to have just a set of rules for all of the 6 counties and Cook County. In some ways it sounds very good. In some other ways it could be that they will now permit trucks to go places where we know the road isn't ready for a big truck, but they can get a permit from somebody in Chicago and send their truck on our street that isn't made for a 100,000-pound load or isn't big enough to have an over-wide load. So it's still in discussion. There are a lot of positives to it because they said that some trucking companies will refuse to come to the Chicago area because they have been caught, so to speak, in a town where you go here and you cross the road over there and it's not in your permitted area, but you don't realize it, and then you pay a $10,000 fee. But anyway, it's just one of those things that is kind of happening on a regional basis. I will imagine it will be good for overall business and will probably end up being passed. The other one,
Unless they try to make a right-hand turn on the main street off of 31.
yeah, and probably didn't have a permit for it from Carpentersville, but that's here nor there. It sounds like they didn't have a permit from anybody at that point.
This has got the makings of good intentions, just falling flat on its face. We had to shut 31 down for a day and a half because of that truck?
Yeah.
He was really lost. If you want to, Battalion Chief Beatty, if you want to, for the audience to know what.
Yeah, that incident, I was on that incident, and he actually wasn't even supposed to be up in Carpentersville. He was supposed to be on Carpenter Street in Chicago, but his GPS was programmed wrong, and he followed it. Instead of using common sense, he followed it. And
Wow.
So he wasn't supposed to be there.
That was way off.
Big buildings we have with them in Chicago.
So one other thing that came up, and this one is really, it's unhappy, but it's a regulation that's being pushed from Washington on down. We already have a CMAP area that does planning for the whole entire Chicago urban area, but I think it's the Secretary of Transportation has this goal of expanding these areas to include the whole urban area, and they now have pushed it through. And so now our urban area goes from Milwaukee to LaPorte, Indiana. And since it crosses state lines, there is a possibility that a grant given to Chicago could be vetoed by the governor of Wisconsin or Indiana, because there are 3 states now in the same regional thing. And CMAP and a lot of other bodies all across the country have been fighting this regulation, but evidently that particular Secretary of Transportation has been in favor of this and has been working on getting it for 4 years or 6 years, I don't remember which it is. But that's now a reality, and it will be very hard to undo. So we now are in a tri-state regional planning area instead of an Illinois regional planning area. So We're not sure what that will all entail, but the thing about the vetoes is the first one that they said. Look out, we could be in a war with other states because we want to do something here that they think will slow down their business there, so they veto ours, then we veto theirs. It's not a good sight at all. Or I don't think. I think that everybody involved is against it, except the guy who said, "Let's do it." And finally, tomorrow at lunch, we have the annual senior forum. It's over at the Rake House Senior Center, and the 4 or 5, depending on who shows up, mayors will be there, and we have a list of questions, and we talk to all the senior citizens about what's going on, and they get to ask questions, and we have some prepared remarks, so we do for them. It's a nice event. They get a free lunch, and we get to answer questions. That concludes my remarks. The next thing would be closed session, and we have 5 today. We have section 2C1, 2C3, 2C5, 2C6, and 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act to be conducted in closed session. So I would need a motion to move to closed session.
Motion to move to closed
Motion Ginger, second.
I'll second.
Second Jeff. Mike, would you call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Rayberg.
Yes.
Trustee Shull.
Yes.
Trustee Burraway.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Humper.
Yes.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.